We begin this morning at 7 minutes after the hour by spotlighting a very special program that is coming up, A Prayer for Peace, The Power of One Voice. It is the second of the Prayer for Peace classical concert cycles with Maestro Jason Tramm, who debuted at Carnegie Hall in 2015. This concert coming up at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center in Newark on October 27th, the 27th, week from Friday. Couple of weeks from Friday, as a matter of fact. Maestro Tramm is the Seton Hall Director of Choral Activities and an assistant professor in the College of Communication and the Arts, also the artistic director of the Mid-Atlantic Opera and the director of music in residence, the Ocean Grove CMA. And he joins us here in studio. Maestro, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, John, to all the Relevant Radio listeners.
We were just sharing before we went on the air my trials and tribulations trying to play the giant Hammond chord organ, which lasted for more years. Not the hippest instrument to play in the world, but nonetheless, we were sharing some of those things. And
it would certainly make an impact on the church.
Yeah, definitely. I had the opportunity to play the big church organ once in my life, so that was intimidating and also a blessing now that I look at it, but I wasn't looking at it as a blessing on that particular morning because I was only in the 7th grade and instantly deputized to be the organist as well. But the power of music, it's something that it's interesting. We've been talking about the power of music as well as Augustine said, if you sing, you pray twice, and the power of music in our lives as a very strong form of prayer, and especially this prayer for Peace, The Power of One Voice. It's the second Prayer for Peace classical concert that we were talking about that's coming up at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center in Newark on October 27th. What will be in that concert?
Well, it's a very exciting mix of music. I strive to find pieces that fit together in interesting ways. The first Prayer for Peace concert at Carnegie was we took a piece by each of the composers of elements of the Abrahamic faiths. We had a Christian composer, Raphael Williams, a Muslim composer, Adnan Saygun, and we had a Jewish composer, Bernstein. And all of the works represented the prayer for peace through that religion. And we strove to find unity in our different beliefs, but to find unity in that common human element. So for the second Prayer for Peace concert, we're focusing on the power of one voice to make change. And the concert is focused around Beethoven's immortal Ninth Symphony, the big choral symphony, and a work which has become one of the greatest works ever written by a human, and it has that universal call for peace. But I was fascinated by the Beethoven Ninth Symphony because of how it fits and because of where Beethoven was in his life. At that point in his life, he was in complete deafness, and he's been excited about writing a musical setting of Schiller's Ode to Joy poem. But I think in his deafness, he lost his connection with people, and he was striving to reconnect with people. And through the Ninth Symphony, which was his greatest work, he connects through the generations and through the centuries and maintains that connection today. I paired it with other pieces that have interesting relevance as well. I'm going to precede the Beethoven with Arnold Schoenberg's A Survivor from Warsaw. And on this concert, we're going to honor a Holocaust survivor, author and survivor Luna Kaufman, who's going to be with us at that program. And I think that the Beethoven gets recreated with each generation. And that prayer for peace, that power of one voice transcends even the worst of times. So the Holocaust being one of them, and something that's very, very relevant today, actually.
Indeed. Maestro Tramm, as we talk about this second annual Concert for Peace that's coming up, this Prayer for Peace on October 27th at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, we should point out that Seton Hall has a very important history in interfaith dialogue here in the New York metropolitan area, certainly in the Catholic Church in the United States, and that will be carried over in this peace concert coming up, along with 65 student singers, right?
The choir is about 100, actually. We have 100 in the choir. It's our choir at Seton Hall, plus some guests from the community joining us as well, along with a 65-piece Mid-Atlantic Opera Orchestra and wonderful professional soloists who've been on places like the Metropolitan Opera and Carnegie Hall. And we just have the violin soloist from the Fiddler on the Roof production. She was the featured soloist, Kelly Hall Tompkins. So we have a mix of wonderful artists from all over the region and uniting for that common goal for peace.
You know, if you hang around the campus over at South Orange, New Jersey long enough, you hear people whispering about this guy, Maestro Jason Tramm, as a young Leonard Bernstein.
Wow, that's quite a humbling comparison. One of my heroes, obviously, as a conductor and an American conductor, he was the first truly great international American conductor and really an advocate for peace and for common understanding through music. So that makes me very humbled.
In the context of what you do, what makes a conductor heroic?
He really stood up against injustice and tolerance and was a great force for education. He was one of the great educators. His programs on television and radio and at the Symphony Hall changed lives for many generations. And whenever you see Bernstein, he was a fully engaged musician and completely engaged socially as well. So that's a real inspiration.
I remember growing up the Young People's Concerts that Leonard Bernstein conducted that were on CBS.
Those programs are still fantastic. I know my students, my young new students, they still connect with those on YouTube. Those pieces still have the power to inspire. When
did you know that you were blessed with these musical talents from the Holy Spirit?
Well, I started singing before I could remember. I have three older brothers, and all of them be like, "Be quiet," but they were not necessarily musical. But I was just born with that gift. I loved to sing. I sang in church at age 5. I was singing as a soloist, and I just that was just what I did, and it was always what I wanted to do. And when I went to college, I studied voice. I became a music teacher, and then I was led to conducting, and that changed my life. A professor in my master's degree got me into conducting, and I founded my own orchestra that summer, and I put together an orchestra and a professional chorus, and that was a success. And I started my doctorate in conducting, and then I was very blessed to be in the right place at the right time and to continue that. And it's amazing where the Lord takes you when you're willing to go.
Many of us find it fascinating to watch conductors at work, especially if there is a camera from the orchestra's perspective where you get to see the passion, the emotion. There's so many things that happen in the body language of a conductor and also his facial features as well. What would we see if we had that point of view as you conduct, Maestro Tramm?
Well, it's always uncomfortable to watch yourself conduct after the fact, but I can tell you what I've been told. I view the conductor's role as it's like an electrical conduit. You're like a wire from the composer to the audience, and you're that link that makes that happen. So you've got to be what you don't see is the thousands of hours of preparation time and practice that the conductor does to be able to do that. The physical part comes after the mental part, and you put them in the head and then in the hands, and then the rehearsal process is where all the magic happens. So in the performance, it's embodying the physical embodiment of what that music is representing.
If you are more physical, does it make the experience of hearing that music more visceral for me in the audience?
Well, the music moves you and inspires you. As a conductor, I don't really know what I do live in performance because it's very spontaneous. It just happens. And over the years, it becomes more and more ingrained, and you find you're able to take a group of people that some of them you know, some of you don't know, and to make art with them, and to take what they do and ask for one step better. Just give me your absolute best, and you demand that best, and then everyone gives their best, and then magic happens.
We should also mention, as we have this conversation with Maestro Jason Tramm, who is the Seton Hall University Director of Choral Activities and an assistant professor in the College of Communications and the Art, he will be conducting the Mid-Atlantic Opera Orchestra for Prayer for Peace, The Power of One Voice, coming up on October 27th at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center in Newark. How big is the Mid-Atlantic Opera Orchestra?
Well, it depends on the concert we're doing. We're doing a Rigoletto in Pennsylvania. We have a 25-piece orchestra, and we're doing the Beethoven, which we have a 65-piece orchestra. So it depends on the repertoire we're performing. But I find projects like this that inspire and unite. And I firmly believe music has the ability to unite and inspire. And I look for those opportunities and to grab them whenever I can.
And that goes back to what we were talking about with Maestro Bernstein, is to unite and inspire. That was a very key message, especially during the 1960s when we saw so many of those children's concerts.
Well, I think a lot of the issues that were alive and active then are still alive and active now.
Yeah.
I can't picture a more fractured time in society when we really need to find our common unit, things that bind us together instead of our differences. And I think music really has that power to bring people together and to let beauty and art speak for itself.
October 27th, New Jersey Performing Arts Center, Prayer for Peace, the Power of One Voice concert. Maestro Jason Tramm will be conducting. He's joining us this morning here on Morning Air on Relevant Radio 1430. You conducted at Carnegie Hall. What's that like?
It was certainly a thrill. I don't get nervous when I conduct, but sitting in the dressing room getting ready to conduct and looking at the wall and seeing a picture of Leonard Bernstein, of Carry On, and seeing a picture of Tchaikovsky, all who had sat in that dressing room, certainly gave you a little bit of stomach butterflies.
What do you say to God at that time?
Well, I did say a prayer. Every time I walk on stage, I always bow down in prayer because we don't go into that level of pressure without help. And I feel it's very important to stop and to reflect and to gather your thoughts and energies before walking out and then delivering in front of people.
What is that pressure? Can you define that pressure?
Every time in classical music you're doing pieces, most of the time pieces that are very famous, like the Beethoven, for example, is probably the most famous piece in all of classical music. And it's been done by every great composer and conductor, and anyone who's important knows this piece well. So putting your interpretation on this, I always ask for a blessing on that because we walk out there and you just lay it all out there. And it's an intimidating process, but once the program starts, the mind shuts off and you're just in the zone. You're in the moment, creating music. You're reacting to what the orchestra is doing. They're reacting to me, and it's a group community project, and it's quite special.
The Mid-Atlantic Opera Orchestra will perform along with 100 voices from the Seton Hall Choir, and Maestro Jason Tramm will be conducting in the Prayer for Peace, the Power of One Voice, October 27th at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. What do you look for in a voice before someone is able to make it into that elite group at Seton Hall University to be a part of the student singing group? What do you look for in a voice?
Well, there's certainly the musical qualifications, having a voice, having good pitch. And then I look for people who are excited by this. It's music's got to be something that moves you. It's got to be something that you're excited about doing. And that's very important to me, that people are enjoying it. Because we don't make music unless it's something we love. Music comes from the heart. And I hope that people I hope my singers understand that it's work to learn the music, and the rehearsal process can be tricky, but we do this so we can share our hearts with the people in the audience.
So you look for that passion in these singers.
Certainly, that passion's so important, and understanding that what they're giving people is a gift.
And that gift comes together. That passion comes together. Certainly, depending on how large the orchestra is, as you were mentioning, depending on the pieces you're performing, and 100 voices, and you bringing it all together. Feeling that passion, just kind of wafting from the stage into the audience. It's something that's very powerful.
It certainly is, and one of the things about doing a project like this one is that we find I like to find a social message in my programming, and in this case we partnered up with the my College of Communications and the Arts partnered up with the International School of Diplomacy at Seton Hall University, which is an interesting combination. But really, music is a form of diplomacy, and luckily, the dean of that college, Andrea Bartoli, was very much in agreement with me. And we decided that in this performance, any money that's raised is going to be donated to a scholarship for refugees from war-torn countries.
So in the first Prayer for Peace concert, where money was donated to refugee relief, as you mentioned, the proceeds from this concert coming up at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center on October 27th will fund a scholarship to aid refugee students to pursue a degree at Seton Hall University. So save the date. It is Friday, October 27th, New Jersey Performing Arts Center. Prayer for Peace, the Power of One. It's the second of the Prayer for Peace classical concerts conducted by Maestro Jason Tramm along with the Mid-Atlantic Opera Orchestra and 100 voices from Seton Hall University as well. We look forward to that. Godspeed to you. We'll be praying for you and for all of those for the second Prayer for Peace concert coming up on the 27th. And come back again, be a part of the radio program. Maestro, thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, and God bless your work as well.